Hi guys, this is Vincent. I'm a registered migration agent working here at OSIS Group. Thanks for joining us. So today we're going to discuss the July invitation round. Obviously we're talking about the 189 and the 489 visas, invitation round. The results have been published just yesterday and it's very good actually to analyze the results and see like what's happening, so that we know, okay, when can I get invited? Because you might have seen the way things are going. Under the 189 visa, it's very hard to be invited, right? And especially for certain occupations which you already know, accounting, IT and engineering. But let's have a brief analysis, a brief look at the records, like the results, so that we can understand together how it works, and from there predict when you can be invited. So first things, it's good to know that at least following the April, May and June invitation round, which were the last 3 rounds of the last financial year, the government has only invited 100, issued 100 invitations every round, which is April, May and June, and 100 invitations, sorry, for the skill independent, which is the 189 visa, and 10 for the 489, the skill regional provisional under the family sponsor stream, right? Good to know, very good to know that at least from July, as we were expecting, the Department of Home Affairs has started inviting more applicants. And as I stated as well in my last live, we were expecting the invitations to be around 1,000. We were actually hoping it would be around 1,200, 1,250, but it revealed to be 1,000. So in other words, the department has invited 1,000, has issued 1,000 invitations for the 189 and 100 for the 489, which is a very good thing. Right. So let's have a look. At least the good thing is that apart from accounting and external auditors, all the occupation, the points have dropped to 80. At least it's a good thing. When it's gonna drop to 75, at this stage it's very hard to comment on this. But at least the good thing is at least it is 80. So even for accountant and auditors, it's back to 85 now, where it used to be 90, 95. So let's have a look, and just if for those of you who haven't had a look at the immigration website, I'll just give you an insight like how it looks like. So let's start with the occupation where there is the highest competition first, which is accounting and auditing. The points are now at 85, and it's good to know that the department has invited EOIs for the 489 up to, for accountants with 85 points up to the 14th of December and up to the 9th of March for auditors. Right, so you can understand that auditors are pretty ahead. In other words, it means that you might be invited if you're an auditor earlier compared to an accountant with the same number of points. If we have a look at engineering occupations, where we have essentially, electronics, where you have lots of where those occupational operata. So you've got electronics, industrial, mechanical, production, as well as other engineering professionals. You know, the 2339 unit group, where you've got aeronautical, amongst others, biomedical, if I'm not mistaken, as well, like all those occupations. It's all to 80 points now, right? And they have invited up to the 5th of May when it comes to electronics engineer, and up to the 10th of May for industrial, mechanical and production, which is a good thing, which means theoretically there are EOIs, like a queue of 2 months worth of 2 months of EOIs, and for other engineering professionals they have invited up to the 1st of April. So essentially it means that there is a queue of roughly, if the number of EOIs that have been lodged is quite similar to what has been lodged previously, there would be a queue of around 3 months for other engineering professionals. When I say 3 months here, important thing is not that you will have to wait 3 months. It means that we estimate the number of EOIs would be around like for 3 months. How long it's gonna take? We're gonna discuss this in a few minutes. When it comes to business analysts, good thing, it's back to 80 points now, because it was 85 previously as well. We have received invitations up to the 12th of April, so which is a good thing as well. In terms of software, and Computer Network, they have invited up to the 13th of May, which is actually the highest so far, the closest to the date of effect. Again, it is with 80 points. Right. So what's worth mentioning here, when we have a look at, obviously, which is your main question, when I'm going to be invited and how to know, how to get a decent idea. So let's just have a look. If we clock back history, we have a look at the previous invitation rounds. We'll see that, let's say, the last time that an accountant with 85 points was invited was back in March, right? So it was in February and then March. But the statistics of the date of effect in March was the 10th of April, which essentially can't be the 10th of April of 2019, because if you were invited in March 2019, it's impossible that your EY was lodged after the 10th, right, or even on the 11th. So because of this, the statistics are quite, I would say, false here, because the figures are incorrect on the immigration website. But at least let's cover the other occupations, and then we'll answer an important point that has been raised by a number of clients where we have received inquiries over the phone. So let's say for auditors, we can see that the last time that invitations were issued with 85 pointers was back in May, where the department essentially invited up to the 28th of December. So based on this, what we can understand, it's good to know that we understand that in July, the department has essentially cleared all the invitations with 85 pointers from the 28th of December 2018 until the 9th of March. So hypothetically, I mean, roughly that would be around 2.5 months. So based on this, if the department issues the same number of invitation, and if the number of EOIs that have been lodged from the 9th of March to date are more or less at the same rate, you can expect an invitation as an auditor in 2 to 3 months. Means in 2 to 3 rounds. Obviously, it doesn't mean that you'll be invited in August, but you might be in September or October. For electronics engineer, it's the same thing. We expect that you will be invited if you have 80 points in 2 to 3 months. Why? Because again here, the last time that electronics engineer were invited with 80 points, it was back in April, and the department cleared invitations up to the 11th of March. In other words, again, like basic statistics here, it means that in the last round, essentially just under 2 months of worth of queue were cleared. So based on this, and again, considering that if the number of invitations are still around 1,000 per round, and considering that the number of EOIs lodged in those months were more or less constant, you can expect an invitation in 2 or 3 months. When it comes to the other professions in engineering, where you've got industrial, mechanical, biomedical, production, and aeronautical, amongst others, here it's a different story. We can see that the last time the invitations were back at 80 points, it was still in May, both of them, in May 2019. However, the gap here was bigger. So for industrial mechanical production engineers, roughly around 1.5 months that has been cleared. So based on this, considering the department has invited up to the 10th of May, it will take longer. We expect if you have 80 points, right, and you are in the industrial mechanical or production engineer, you will be invited in 4 or 5 months. Why essentially? I'll just explain you. Considering that in May, the Department of Home Affairs have issued invitations to 80 pointers up to the 22nd of March, right? And in the next round, which was 2 weeks ago, they have cleared up to the 10th of May. This is roughly 1.5 months. So they have cleared 1.5 months of invitations, right, for, let's say, industrial mechanical production engineer in July. If we consider that they will be clearing roughly 1.5 months in every round, that will take around 4 to 5 rounds to be invited. Same for the professional engineer. Let's move on to business analyst now. So if we consider obviously IT occupations, which is one of the other unit groups where you have the most competition, where you have got ICT business analyst, systems analyst, software engineer, analyst programmers, developer programmers, computer network and system engineers, as well as ICT security specialists. Worth mentioning that in the list that I've just enumerated, ICT Security Specialist is a non-pro rata, right? Which means that you have a point, you will be invited, but obviously not if you. It doesn't mean that if you got your 80 points, you'll be invited, even if you lodge your EOI on one day prior to the invitation round. No, it doesn't mean. What it means is that if your occupation is not pro rata, you will not be subject to restrictions, which means that theoretically speaking, the department will not restrict the invitations so as to allow or to cater for other invitations to be issued in the future if you have got high points. That's essentially the main difference. So if let's consider about software. It's good to know that I have just skipped ICT Business Analyst for the simple reason that there are no statistics available as to when business analysts were up to 80 points in the previous rounds. Why? Essentially because there was a jump from 75 to 85 points directly. In other words, even though again it is just a prediction, we can't know really what's the duration in terms of waiting time, right, for business analysts. That is why it's hard to predict. However, if we move to software analysts and application programmers, where you've got software engineers, I mentioned, analyst programmer and developer programmer, we can see that in this invitation round, 80 pointers have been invited up to the 13th of May. Considering that the last time 80 pointers was invited, it was back in May, right, which means on the 11th of May, and at that time the department has invited up to the 10th of February. In other words, it is reasonable to assume that EOIs from the 10th of February up to the 13th of May have been cleared in just one round, which was on the 11th of July, so the last round. Considering they have cleared 3 months in just one round, and considering that they are invited up to the 13th of May, it would be fair to assume that if you've got 80 points, right, you would be invited in the next round, which is on the 11th of August. Let's move on to computer network now. For computer networks and system engineers, same story. The department has issued invitations up to the 15th of May. However, here, the last time that we had invitations was up to the 20th of March, right? And again, it was in May. So considering they have cleared a queue, again, it doesn't mean, it doesn't reflect the number of EOIs, but just a queue in terms of waiting time roughly. But there was less than 2 months, we can expect an invitation if you've got your 80 points in that occupation, which is computer network and system engineer, in 2 or 3 rounds. Right. So just to sum up and to about the invitation round, when it comes to business analysts, it is quite hard to predict. That is why we won't be discussing this matter specifically when it comes to 80 pointers. However, now I'll just approach another point as soon as those results were published, we got a couple of inquiries where, amongst others, someone has stated like they couldn't understand because as per the statistics from the immigration website, like if you go on Skill Select, you would see that EOIs with 85 pointers were invited in February and in March of this year, like February 2019 and March 2019. And what's even more hilarious is that in February, the department has invited up to the 9th of February. So how is it possible if on the 9th of February, on the 11th of February, if I had lodged my EOI, let's say for instance on the 8th of February, I would have been invited on the 11th. How is it possible that based on the statistics that that were available yesterday, how is it possible that the cutoff, the date of effect for accountants with 85 pointers is the 14th of December, which means it's even further now. It hasn't progressed. It has actually gone back in the past. So the explanation for this is quite simple actually, but at the same time it's definitely I would say alarming, especially if you're waiting for your invitation, because there are a couple of things to note here. First thing, I'll explain you what has happened in this. So essentially, if what it means is that if the department has invited an EOI where the date of effect was on the 14th of December, it means obviously that this EOI reached 85 points or was created with 85 points on the 14th of December. Since the 14th of December is obviously after the 11th, you would expect to be invited on the 11th of January, which was the case. So this EOI or those EOI, they were invited on the 11th of January. It is a fair assumption again to say that those EOIs that were invited, no visas were lodged for those EOIs. Considering an EOI is logged for 60 days from the date it is invited, they would have missed the 11th of February and 11th of March invitation round, right? And if we consider as well that for April, May and June, the points were more than 85, which is 90 or plus, that is why those EOI haven't been invited. And now that the department has started picking 85 pointers, naturally they would have been invited. So what is really alarming here is that based on those statistics, we understand that if you had 85 points as at the 14th of December 2018, you would have been invited, right? Which is fair enough. But what is alarming here, like I said, is that in the last round, which is on the 11th of July, 87 EOIs have been invited. Now, it's just worth mentioning one thing. The statistics say 87, but it is good to know that 87 EOIs or 87, let's say, seats, we would say, are not only for 189. When it comes to accountant, which is the 221111 occupation, those 87 seats, just for this occupation solely, they are shared amongst 189 and some other skill visas under employer sponsor, which is the 186 ENS and 187 for RSMS. So even if, let's say for instance, a few number of invitations were invited, or let's say if we just divide it in three, that's around 30 invitations issued to accountants with an EOI which was before the 14th of December, which means that it's like close to impossible to know when you'll be invited. Why? Because we don't know how many invitations, right? Like some people refer to those invitations as fake EOIs, but let's put it this way, it's like uninvited EOIs. So we don't know how many EOIs like those have been actually lodged, right, by SkillSelect, because it makes sense that the way SkillSelect picks an invitation, it's about, they will consider two factors. First thing is highest points first, and then first come, first serve. So it is again a fair assumption to state that if around 30 or more EOIs were still pending and haven't been used to lodge a visa, it would be fair to assume that there is still a huge number of those invitations still pending in the queue. In other words, what does this mean? What does it mean for you? If you've got your 85 points, you might have to wait quite some time now, unfortunately, right? So I hope what I've said just shed some light about this invitation round, especially for accountants. So obviously, let's have a look like what else can you do now, right? Because I've got my 80 points, I've got my 85 points, so my visa is about to expire, which most likely is a 45 in the coming months. What are my options and what will I do? So I won't be taking too much of your time, but essentially, if I was a student, I would definitely consider relocating now, seeing if you will be meeting the requirements and apply in another state. Amongst others, there is sponsoring states, obviously depending on the occupation. You will have Tasmania, Northern Territory, South Australia, and ACT, as well as Western Australia. But those four remain, I would say, are the easiest one. And worth mentioning that Tasmania is still the most flexible one. Why? Because essentially, if you've got at least 6 months left on your 45 visa, hypothetically, if you move to Tasmania and you work for 6 months full time in any occupation skill level 1 to 4, you can apply, you can avail the 491 visa. Or alternatively, if you study for 1 year, like you study a 92 weeks CRICOS registered course, you can apply again for that 491 visa. Let's say now if relocating is not an option for you, what can you do? So it makes sense that you need to do the best you can to get more points. I've got a couple of inquiries where people say, but Vincent, how is it possible that someone reaches 90 points, 95 points, right? So essentially, it's good to know one thing. most of the applicants, let's face the facts, fall in the age bracket 25 to 32, so they'll be having the highest possible points for the age. They would have done obviously at least 2 years of study here at bachelor master's level, which means they'll be having 15 and 5 points, so 20 points. That's already 50. Considering that it is, put it this way, easy to get the maximum score in PTE, obviously provided you have got the right preparation. So everyone is scoring 79 plus in each of the band. In other words, we are having 20 points, which means that everyone is having 70 points. That used to be some months ago. Now, obviously, all of the applicants, they've realized long time ago that 70 points would not be sufficient. So obviously what everyone is doing PY if you are from IT, accounting and engineering background, and they're also doing NATI CCL now. So in other words, 80 points is the new, I would say, is the new 65 points, like the new benchmark. So based on just those things that I mentioned, which is, PY, NATI, and the PT, that can hypothetically give you 30 more points. So what's the extra now? How people are getting more points? It makes sense that those who are lucky to get experience, to get 1 year of experience in their occupation, would be able to claim 5 points. Or if you would have had studied in a regional area, right? Let's say, for example, you've completed hypothetical case, you've completed a Masters of Engineering in Deakin at Geelong campus. So obviously you'll be getting 5 more points compared to someone else. So these are the ways you can get more points. It makes sense. It is not worth considering moving to regional and study 2 years now just for 5 points. It's better to consider relocating to another state where you might be or you will be eligible in a shorter period of time, right? So let's move on now to another alternative, and we'll be discussing the 190 in New South Wales. So you might be aware, if I'm not mistaken, that was last Thursday or Wednesday when New South Wales, they opened and they announced their new list. They have imposed some additional conditions on some occupations, amongst others, like you would imagine, IT, accounting, and engineering. Let's say, for instance, now, if you are an accountant, if you got your 85 points or 80 points, and if you are in Melbourne, you don't stand a chance to be invited. Why? Simply because the special requirements from the New South Wales government is that you should have, 1 year of experience in your occupation in New South Wales, right? So which means 12 months before applying. However, there are still some occupations which under New South Wales are easy to get the invitation. As you would know, it's still the trade occupation. Right? It's quite easy to get invited. What I mean by trade is, there is chef, motor mechanic, welder, plumber, carpenter, painter, as well as aircon and refrigeration mechanic. So these occupations are quite easy to get for someone to be invited, even if you just have the minimum points, which are 60 points, like independently. So 60 plus 5, obviously you'll be getting 65. Alternatively, what you can consider and what you should have a look is the 491 in the 489, sorry, which is going to be replaced by 491 in New South Wales. As we all know, there are lots of participating regional areas. Amongst others, just to give you an idea how competitive it is, Orana has already obviously was open 3 weeks ago, and they already closed after a couple of days. Same for Northern Inland. At least the good thing is that now Southern Inland is still sponsoring. So if you meet their state requirements, especially for some occupation where they do require onshore experience, definitely you can apply. Right? It makes sense if you're not sure about your occupation, whether you can be sponsored or not, whether you meet the requirements. Feel free to get in touch. Right? We'll definitely have a look at your profile. We'll do a fair assessment and tell you what are your chances. Otherwise, that's pretty much it for today. If you have any questions regarding what we've just discussed, or also if you want some more information about this invitation round and how we came up with this analysis, feel free to contact us. You can give us a call on our landline. The number is 03-9602 3435, and obviously ask to meet one of the migration agents. Just to recall, my name is Vincent, so Vincent Couron. Feel free to call and book an appointment. Otherwise, that's pretty much it. And thank you for watching us.